For our first protagonist, we head to Jackson County, Florida, where a police officer was caught framing innocent people, specifically initiating an investigation into one of his deputies in 2018. Former Jackson County Sheriff's Deputy Zachary Western was caught red-handed planting drugs on innocent individuals. It was reported that Western, a department officer since 2016, was planting drugs in vehicles, resulting in a series of false charges. He was immediately suspended, and 3 years later, his case went to trial. Undoubtedly, this is a case of abuse of power by a law enforcement officer whose duty was to serve the people. Western's primary victims were drivers he stopped for random traffic checks. Once unsuspecting drivers stepped out of their cars and walked away, Western would plant drugs inside the vehicle and present them as evidence for arrest. Stephen Band was a victim of one of these supposed checks. Band, a former convicted criminal, had just been released from jail when he was stopped by Western. In his testimony, Band said he allowed people to search his vehicle, claiming he had nothing to hide. But that's when Western found methamphetamine in his car.
¿Habías visto esto antes?, preguntó el agente. No. ¿Qué es eso?, respondió Band.
However, the sheriff's deputy's own body camera was enough evidence to convict him, especially in the case of Teresa Odom. In the camera footage, it can be seen that Western was initially friendly with Odom. Odom, thinking she had nothing to hide in the car, complied with Western's orders. As he was about to put on gloves, the camera captured a small bag in his left hand, which the prosecution believes is the same bag Western claimed to have found in the car. Western categorically denied putting illegal substances in the car, stating that the narcotics were already there. He was charged with 67 counts, including conspiracy, tampering with evidence, false imprisonment, and possession of controlled substances. Although he pleaded not guilty to all charges, the jury found him guilty of 19, including the unjustified arrests of Stephen Band and Teresa Odom. In July 2021, the corrupt officer was sentenced to 12.5 years in state prison. Now, we move on to the second protagonist from Monroe County, Georgia, where a police officer was caught on tape soliciting sexual favors from one of his detained victims. Bill Miller, with the Georgia Police Department since 2014, joined the department as a sheriff's deputy in April 2018. It was this incident that would ultimately destroy his career. In July 2018, Miller arrested Ashley Roberts for driving under the influence and possession of methamphetamine. A few weeks after Roberts posted bail, Miller sent her a text message asking her to meet him in the parking lot. When she did, the officer asked her to get into his vehicle and offered her beer. According to Roberts, Miller drove her truck to a dirt road, and that's when things started getting suspicious. Fortunately, Roberts had the presence of mind to discreetly activate her phone's voice recorder without him knowing. Miller told Roberts that her DUI charges would disappear if she was willing to perform some sexual favors for him. In the voice recordings, Miller can be heard saying that all she has to do is talk to the district attorney to drop the charges. The conversation became increasingly unsettling. Miller repeatedly insisted to Roberts, making inappropriate proposals under the guise of trying to help her. However, Roberts did not yield and continued to reject the officer's insinuations. On a lonely dirt road in Monroe County, an off-duty cop wanted a favor from a woman he had just detained. After this whole incident unfolded, Roberts reported it to several news agencies. She provided them with the recordings, and later, Monroe County investigators got involved. Miller was subsequently arrested in August 2018. Once the investigation concluded, he was dismissed from his position in the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. The interim sheriff of the county at that time, Al Shackelford, told Fox 5 Atlanta that the agency was shocked and disappointed.
La aplicación de la ley debe tener un nivel más alto.
He stated in his statement after Miller's arrest, calling the situation a slap in the face to all those entrusted with enforcing the law, namely the men and women of this office and the men and women who protect us everywhere. Monroe County District Attorney Jonathan Adams also reported that Miller agreed not to seek first offender status. If granted first offender status, Miller would have served some time on probation or possibly in jail. But after completing his time, he would have been given an order of discharge, allowing the case to be dismissed without a conviction.
¿Ni siquiera vas a pegarme? No, soy una buena persona. Creo que te gustaría, pero... No, probablemente no te gustaría. Sin embargo, según el fiscal, de esta manera la condena lo seguirá por el resto de su vida. No podrás volver a ser agente de la ley mientras tengas la oportunidad.
After the case went to trial, Miller was found guilty and convicted of felony bribery and violation of his oath of office. Despite these charges, he did not serve any prison time. However, he will spend 8 years on probation with a $2,000 fine. In addition to these penalties, he won't be allowed to enter, travel through, or visit Monroe, Lamar, or Butts counties. The ban will remain in effect until Miller completes his probation. Now, we move on to the third incident in Detroit, where 2 police officers were caught in a bribery situation related to a towing company. Officer Daniel Bikers and his childhood friend, former Detroit Police Lieutenant John F. Kennedy, teamed up in 2017. They conspired with an unidentified towing contractor and offered protection in exchange for money and other goods. In November 2017, Bikers gave his word to the towing contractor that they wouldn't have to worry about the ongoing investigation by the Police Integrity Unit into the Tower I Company. As the official is named in the indictment documents, he promised that Bikers and Kennedy would receive free cars for doing so.
Sí, sé que soy bueno. Voy a alinearlos, le dijo Torrea a Vickers. Tengo dos para los hijos de Kennedy y uno para ti. Tiene un Chrysler 200, el Fusion y el Beamer.
Both police officers knew exactly what they were doing and that they were violating city rules that prohibit a towing company from receiving referrals if it's not on the department's rotation. Kennedy, who was the supervisor of the department's integrity unit, used his influence over other officers and violated these rules, according to federal law enforcement officials. Throughout the ordeal, Bikers earned $3,400 from the towing company, while his partner Kennedy accepted $14,950 in cash. A year after being arrested and charged with various bribery and conspiracy to commit bribery charges in a federal indictment, Bikers finally pleaded guilty to his role in the bribery conspiracy in October.
Las acciones de este ex agente son totalmente inaceptables para cualquiera que haya jurado proteger y servir a nuestra ciudad como policía de Detroit, dijo el jefe de la policía de Detroit, James White. Mientras la fiscal federal Dawn Eisen comentó, cualquier oficial de policía que elija el camino de la corrupción debe entender que no vamos a tolerar la conducta poco ética de nuestros funcionarios públicos en cualquier nivel.
Bikers is now serving a 27-month sentence in a federal prison, the longest and toughest sentence to date for a convicted individual in a public corruption case. His partner, Kennedy, on the other hand, has pleaded guilty to the charges and will be sentenced in the near future. Kevin Rodriguez was a former officer with the Raleigh Police Department in North Carolina. This corrupt officer was involved in a cocaine-selling case while on duty. Investigations into Rodriguez's suspicious activities began in November 2021. Confidential sources reported Rodriguez to the Raleigh Police Department and the DA. In January 2022, a whole operation was orchestrated where Rodriguez met with a confidential informant while on duty. The 34-year-old officer sold cocaine worth $2,600 in an old abandoned car dealership. As a result, he was arrested in February 2022. In a recent federal court hearing, the former officer pleaded guilty to the charges against him. The charges included conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute more than 500 grams of cocaine and the use of a firearm to commit a drug trafficking crime. He was also found guilty of smoking paraphernalia in his cell, leading to a smuggling charge.
Las acciones del señor Rodríguez traicionaron la confianza pública, deshonraron el juramento que juró mantener y desacreditaron su carácter, declaró la jefa de policía de Raleigh, Stella Patterson. En mi opinión, me complace ver que en este caso se hizo justicia y se administró adecuadamente.
The 34-year-old former officer permanently surrendered his law enforcement certification. Not only that, according to the Department of Justice, he was also prohibited from any certification in North Carolina.